Everyone online says you need to scale with a course. And I say, sell the damn service. I'm Emylee Williams, award-winning consultant and productized offer expert since 2014. And I'm here to help you work less, make more, and stop custom building your burnout. Each week, we talk strategy, structure, and the real stories behind sustainable service businesses. From service providers who like doing service work, who want to stay in service work, but also just make more money. If you're ready for all that yapping, then let's dive in. Hi, good morning, or whatever time it is that you're listening to this. Thank you for being here. Today, I want to talk about making some money before the end of the year. And one of my favorite tactics to make this happen without needing a new client. Okay. So, what I found really interesting in going over the kind of launch details of my most recent sold out services launch is that a lot of the conversations with both prospects and folks who decided to dive in, which welcome, hi, I hope you're listening. There was a lot of conversation around leads, needing leads, leads not converting, and needing more, right? And really wondering what it was going to take to actually bridge the gap of where their current monthly revenue is and their goal monthly revenue, right? And it is, I think, just second nature for humans and business owners, especially, to see a gap, a revenue gap, and say, okay, how can I fill this with new business, new leads, more? What room do I need to get into? What referrals do I need to ask for? Who needs to convert that hasn't? New business, right? I think that that is very common for us to have a kind of one track mind when it comes to bridging that gap. And I want to pose a new option for you. And this isn't to say that you will never need new business again, but it is to say there is hidden revenue sitting inside of your business right now. And I love talking about hidden revenue so much that I actually did a full training at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Network for their community. And it's actually up on their YouTube channel. So I'm going to link it in the show notes so that you can watch that training if you want. It's definitely more in depth of this kind of 30-minute conversation, right? But the concept is I call it hidden revenue because it's quite literally money sitting within your current client roster that just simply needs to be pulled out. And there is an aligned way to make that happen. The reason why this isn't the first thought of approach in order to increase revenue is because we're typically needing to communicate with our existing clients about a price change, about a scope or delivery change. And sometimes that can feel, if we don't have the proper script or the angle, I guess, it can feel really overwhelming, scary, and just anxiety inducing to do all around. But I want to tell you a story and give you an example of one of the best use cases that this strategy and tactic has ever produced. And I want to challenge you to beat it. That's basically my goal for you. You can beat it in a variety of ways, but I want to walk through it with you. So I was working with a marketing agency founder, and she has a very small team. At the time, it was her and one full-time person and one part-time person. That has since changed, but she was at a point where if you've been around for a minute, you know that I call this point ceiling season. She was in ceiling season. She couldn't make any more revenue because she couldn't work with any more clients because she was at capacity. But she couldn't bring on her part-time person to be full-time to help with that capacity issue because she needed more revenue. And therefore, you just enter the cycle of like, I need more money to make more money. Which lever do I pull first? Now, I'm not going to get into the different ways that people approach investing in their business. Some people have the approach of like, invest before you make it because you know the ROI is there and it's coming. And some people are much more conservative. And obviously, some of us fall in between. That is up to you and your bookkeeper, accountant, and financial proclivities, right? In this particular instance, we wanted to kind of challenge ourselves to see, can we generate any money to help kind of cushion the coffers a bit and give us a little bit of a runway so that going into the next quarter, when hiring or bringing on that person and giving them more hours, felt like there was more breathing room to do that, right? And how could we make this decision and this next move in her business just in more alignment and without the like, okay, I spent the money, so now it has to work kind of energy. And I think you need to kind of decide where you're at on that scale. But what we ultimately decided to do was we audited her current client roster and we looked at, who are your current clients? How much are they spending right now? What deliverables and project did they initially come in on? What package? What year? What rate? And what was the literal scope outline, right? And I want you to then compare that to, what are they paying now? And what are you actually delivering now? And so part of this is a cleanup. And this is coming from an aligned, ethical, service-based business owner mentality, where I believe that our clients, especially the ones that we have for more than 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, the ones that are sticking around for a while, that their needs and desires and situation changes and evolves. And as a partner in their business, especially one in marketing, which also changes and evolves constantly, the deliverables that I might suggest for them to get the result that they want today are probably going to be different than the ones that we first agreed upon 12 to 24 months ago, right? And part of that is just you doing your due diligence as a service provider to really ask yourself, is the result that I'm providing them every month supported by the asset, scope, deliverables that are inside of their container that they actually get from me, from my team every month? Are those two things in alignment? Do they match? And not only do they match, but do they match what they first signed up for, right? And so you can probably guess what happened, and this would probably happen in your business too, where there were some legacy clients. So folks who had, come on board really early on, and they're really easy to work with. The package that they're on doesn't exist anymore. My client wouldn't offer that package to a new lead today, but the person is easy. The deliverables are easy. It's just like kind of consistent. You don't have to think about it money. Those we need to do a kind of a second tier audit. First, we need to decide, is this client still someone I want to serve and a result I still want to be providing? And if the answer is no, then that tells us, like, this entire conversation is literally just an if this, then that, right? So if no, right, if I don't want to be doing that anymore, then we need to be creating a sort of exit bridge, right? Is there another service provider I can refer them out to? Is there a white label partnership that I could create or start that would enable this client to get taken care of, but someone else is doing it? Is this I just really don't do this anymore, and even though it's easy money, I need to kind of move on? And that's a fine filter, right? Where are they kind of sitting in that? Or is this something where you don't really do that thing anymore and you don't really think it's providing them the result that actually matters, but something else that you do could be more of a benefit. You just need to kind of bucket and categorize them, because no matter if they're a legacy client or a client who's been around for just 6 months or 9 months or whatever, because when I say legacy, I mean like 2 to 3 years, right? And more. We're going to need to be doing the holistic audit of what did they come in for? How much did they pay? How much are they paying now? What did they get? And truly do an assessment of those things. Now, I think oftentimes that service providers have a lot of hesitancy in communicating with existing clients when their scope and deliverables need to change. Now, I think in the example of my client who did this at the marketing agency, it's really easy to kind of understand that this conversation was received well, but it's applicable to any industry. So for her example, let's just say, when they first started, she was offering social media, like Instagram graphics, Instagram video editing, content planning for that platform. For the majority of that, the content was for that platform, right? And then maybe there was like light email campaign support. Okay. Well, maybe in the last 18 months, 24 months, this marketing agency has done a lot of learning and digging and creating results for new clients for local SEO. And maybe they now really rely heavily on blogging and Google My Business reviews and other aspects for local SEO, right? That's not my expertise, so I can name two. And even though that legacy client didn't come in with those focuses and those desires, those are the things that could impact their business today. And so the conversation needs to be presented in a way that's like, hey, the old paradigm is blank. Here's what that was getting you. Here's why the new shift that we've been doing with our newer clients is better and is something I would suggest for you to move into. And here's what that could look like, right? So the first layer of this is to do that audit. List every client, list when they joined, what they're paying, what they originally signed up to get from you, and what you're currently delivering. And then you do the process of elimination of who do you still want to serve? What deliverables do you still want to offer? And does anyone need to be shut down, like exited out of the relationship and referred? And how's that going to work? Or do they need to be presented with a new offer? Okay. So now you're probably thinking in your brain, because this client thought the same thing. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. That they were like, okay, cool. That sounds great. And I did the audit. Here's the information. My legacy client, and I'm just going to throw some numbers out there. These are not accurate, but my legacy client is spending $450 a month on the 10 Instagram posts that I prep for them. That takes my team 2 seconds. They are not going to transition into a $1,500 a month local business Google My Business SEO package. There's not going to. The price point isn't there. That's not their vibe. It's just not in alignment. And so I want to at least tell you how I approach this. And I'm saving the sexy result for the end because I want you in your brain to kind of process through the like, but this and but that. And then I'm going to tell you the actual result. So how I look at those situations, and everyone is welcome to look at this scenario in their own unique way, and you can have a different philosophy, right? The service-based business world and industry in general is about service and serving other humans and meeting them where they're at when you can. This is not about always. This is not about breaking your boundaries and doing things you really feel out of alignment to do, right? But there are no hard and fast. If you raise your rates, everyone has to pay that rate. If you offer this package, everyone has to pay that. There just isn't. Would your life be easier if that were the case? 100%. Would you probably be pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone all of the time for that? Probably, yeah. And so we did kind of another categorization, right? Categorizing, whatever, of those clients. And we said, okay, legacy folks who are spending like a ridiculously low amount, what do we think they would spend? Yes, they've been like paying that rate for 2 to 3 years. It is time for them to be adjusted. It is fair for their package to increase in price, right? It's kind of on you that you haven't done it yet. And I think it is fair to recognize that just because you probably should have raised their rate year 1 and year 2, that now going into year 3, we probably can't multiply their rate times 3 or raise it the same percentage times 3 and give them that new rate. That probably doesn't feel fair. And we just have to kind of own that we didn't raise their rate when we probably should have. That's part of this learning lesson, right? So what feels realistic for that business and brand or person to now pay? And for those legacy people only, would start at what do we think the aligned rate that they're going to come to an agreement on is going to be? And we need to fill the container of that price. So for example, if you have a legacy client who's currently paying $450 and now you don't do anything less than $1,500, they're probably not going to go from $450 to $1,500 in all reality. So you have two choices. You can either close down the relationship and build an exit plan and eliminate $450 per month and try to make it up in a different spot. It's absolutely doable, right? Or we can say, okay, I really do love them though, and they're so easy. And if we just transition this kind of offer to this offer, I think I can probably get them to, $950. That feels realistic. Okay. What do we feel? So if your 1,500 package is, an X amount of blog post or pages reviewed for SEO or whatever, could we lessen the amount? Could we just say pages reviewed, no blogs? Could we just, you know what I mean? Like what pieces of the new updated package could we eliminate and refine to match that price point for this singular client? Okay. So you're going to have your legacy folks who are like that. And when I mean not every existing client, I'm going to pause your brain for a second. Not every existing client that you work with is a legacy client. That's not what that term means when I'm talking about it. Legacy truly means they've been here for more than one calendar year. I want to say more than 2. Because if they've only been here for 1 year, like say they've been here for 14 months, you can raise their rate, just like you probably should have at month 12. If they've been here for 24 months, maybe like 19, then it's a little slightly different conversation. But I'm really talking about people who've been there for 24 months plus. These are businesses who've been around for a while. These clients have been around for a while. They came at the very beginning and they never left. These are those folks, right? I have legacy clients. I've been in business in this iteration since 2023. It's about to be 2026. Okay. So I'm about to go into my 3rd year of 2 legacy clients. One of them literally pays $300 a month for some deliverables. Luckily, it's my dad. And so I don't care. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, it's such a low lift, it's easy, etc. And absolutely, if there comes a time where I'm like, I just don't want to do those deliverables anymore, I'm going to go through this exact same audit that I'm telling you to decide what to do about that container. Period. Okay. So after we've audited the containers, the price points. We've gone through and identified who our legacy clients are, and then identified how much do we think they would be willing to pay. And so therefore, what is the new proposed scope, right? So then we have all of our other clients who aren't legacy, who we've gone through the same audit. What package did they come in on? What are they paying? What do they need now? And this, I want you to do kind of the deep dive about their actual results in business. Okay, so this person has been paying X and they got this package that we kind of offer like a refined version of that package now, or maybe they are in a package that you do offer, it's just at a different price point. Then it's the conversation of like, do we just need to raise their price, right? And by what amount feels equitable? Or do we need to refine their scope and raise their price? And so I basically want you to do the full audit of every single past client you've worked with, existing client that you've worked with who's actively paying you right now. Okay. This is just this one version of hidden revenue. It's active clients. And then after you kind of organize them all and identify what we need to move them to and what the price point needs to be, this now determines how we approach the conversation. Okay. We all have our clients who there are some we could just email and say, hey, we're having a price increase coming up at the new year. Here's where you're at right now. Here's where it's going to be. Do you approve? And they're going to approve. We have some people who need to have a phone call or a Zoom call or an in-person meeting. We have some people who we need to have one of those meetings and kind of lead into and hint at that this conversation is coming. You know your clients best. Because you're in the service industry, and I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times, there is no version of this that's ever going to be fully 100% automated and that you can apply the same approach to every single client. That's the kind of business you want to run, you're in the wrong industry. Okay? So let's take our time, because when we take our time and when we're really intentional and when we understand how to actually approach each of these folks, that's when the conversions happen. Okay? So I want you to do this deep dive and deep audit. And then I need you to decide, how am I going to actually approach this person? Now, I've created price increase communication templates that are accessible inside of Sold Out Services. So if you are a client, these templates are already loaded or about to be loaded. I'm going to double check that they're there inside of your curriculum. Okay? If you want the direct link to that and you're a client, message me. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of pull out some of the nuances of these scripts and these templates so that you can apply them to your own scenario. All right. Part of this, I quite literally, and I mean this, the script doesn't matter if you are in an absolute head funk about having these conversations with your clients. If you are scared shitless about raising your rate, changing scope, and communicating how we are updating our partnership, your package, the service investment, whatever it is, changes to our service agreement, if that freaks you the fuck out, no script is going to matter. And you need to kind of process the fact that rates change and we need to communicate that. That scope is adjusted and we need to communicate that. Okay? But a couple of ideas. There's a couple of timelines I want you to think about. And the reason why I'm putting this episode out now is because there is no better time than right now to have these conversations with your clients. I want you to spend this week and next, because I know it's a holiday week, to do the audit of your existing clients. And then I want you to spend the first and second week of December making these communications and having the conversation. This is the exact timeline that the marketing agency client I helped with this, that we followed. Okay. So standard notice is 30 to 45 days prior. We are in that window right now. Okay. So this is going to definitely be closer to 30 days prior. Okay. You could also make an adjustment where it's like prices or scope is going to change February. Like the timing doesn't really matter. There is just a psychological element to end of year 2025 prices, beginning of a year 2026 prices. And that is only working in your favor for these conversations. Okay? So if we give a standard notice and we're going to say, something applicable, this is an email or whatever notification, right? We're going to say something like nice to the client, right? Personal detail. I'm reaching out with an important update about our work together. Here's what I forgot to mention. I'm going to put a pause in the template. In your audit, what I also want you to pull out are the actual results you've gotten this client, whether it was from the package that they originally signed up for or not. Okay? Because part of this is sweetening the deal, right? Marketing the adjustment and the changes, especially because there's a price increase involved. And there might be a price increase with a scope reduction. And that's actually one of the things that happened with this marketing client of mine, because there were some containers where she was massively over delivering and the deliverables didn't matter. The client thought they needed them. Like we all have those clients, right? Who are like, oh, I want you to, post 2,700 times a day on Instagram because that's what's needed. And you're like, I know for a fact it's not needed. We could post X amount of times per week and that's going to still meet your goals, right? They don't necessarily know that. They think more is better and insert whatever industry here, right? So I want you to actually gather the results. Based on our work together, we've done things like A, B, C, and we've gotten results like X, Y, Z, period. I want you to have those ready, okay? Because you're going to reference them in your email and you're going to say, for the past years, months, whatever, our agency, our brand has been committed to delivering exceptional. We've helped you achieve this. We've streamlined your operations, resulting in 20% time savings. We implemented systems that improved team efficiency. We've increased your organic traffic, which has led to blank. We'll be adjusting our service rates effective date. This is our first price increase since. Just remind them like that you haven't done one, and it will help us maintain the high quality of support that you've come to expect from us. Your current investment of blank, remind them what they're currently spending. We'll adjust to the new rate, share what it is, on what date. What this means for you, remind them what they're still getting access to. And if anything is new or in addition, bring that up. We deeply value our partnership and remain committed to supporting your business, your brand, whatever. If you have any questions, I'm happy to schedule a call. So this is the type of communication that's going to work for people who you can just email and give the facts. More often than not, you're going to need to schedule a call. Don't be afraid of that. You're going to do exactly what the email just said, but in a call. And if you need to prep a couple of slides so that you have the data and kind of hype it up, like, oh my gosh, did you know that we did this and you got this result? And looking back at the data, I didn't even realize that we achieved blank. And here this is, right? Hype them up. Okay. So that can either, again, be done in an email or a presentation, a year-end review, a 2026 planning session. It doesn't matter. Fit it in. The purpose is really making sure that you are communicating the changes and the price points and the actual dates of what's happening. But really stand firm, especially if you're eliminating scope or adjusting scope, why those changes are being made. And there's some clients of yours who will push back on that because, again, they think that they need the old deliverable. And so if you feel like you need to come prepared for that conversation with receipts, stats, studies, case studies, whatever, to kind of back up your point, then have that. That's only going to help this conversation. Another thing I would suggest that you do is give folks a timeline. Maybe you amend their agreement and you adjust the scope and the deliverables if those things changed, and then you adjust the price point, and they just need to either re-sign that agreement or initial it. Definitely you need to adjust your agreement if you're changing your price and your scope, but you can set that as, you have 2 weeks to approve this and sign it, or till the end of the year, or till whatever date, right? Don't push it out too far. 2 weeks is plenty, a week, right? And get their buy-in. And here's what I want to prep you for. You most likely won't keep every single existing client. That's okay. But you're like, but Emylee, we're after more revenue, not less revenue. If you do the math on what your folks who do stick around, who do upgrade, right? What's the gain versus the loss? Because what happened for my client, and here's where we're going to talk about the result, is we started her campaign mid-November or even late November, and I think it went into January, where we were auditing, deciding the best communication route for each individual client. This is not a mass email that you can just send. Please, for the love of Dumbledore, do not send a mass email. These are personal conversations. Every single email needs to be written by you or your team because it needs to be to that person. Okay? It's worth it. Spend the time here. It's worth it. So we did that. We spent the time where it mattered. And I want to say, and this is a couple years of data, but I know for a fact over the 6-week campaign that this was rolling out and happening, and the transition was happening, she generated $66,000 in contracted revenue, not cash, contracted revenue, which means their rate increased and they signed up for another year or whatever, right? They added on a service because they didn't know that you offered this one over here and they added it on, right? $66,000 in contracted revenue over the course of 6 weeks. I believe that we sent communications to 13 to 14 existing clients, and 11 or 12 of them stayed. Those numbers are bonkers bananas. And with the math of what the people who stayed were increasing into, we didn't need those people who left. We still came out on top. And when I call it hidden revenue, because if you hadn't done this audit and communicated, you would have had $66,000 sitting in the shadows of your business that you would have never gotten to access. Right? So what is your version of this strategy that you can implement right now? It is the perfect time. Go audit your existing clients. Go look at their scope. Go look at the results. Go look at what you can transition them into in your delivery and find the best way to communicate that. And I want you to report back. When you have these conversations, what came up for you? What did the audit tell you? What potential new revenue did you have available to you based on the changes that you made? And then what actually resulted from your conversations? Legitimately, I want you to reach out to me. You can either email me at hello@creativescatalyst.com. There's an S in the middle there. Or reach out to me on Instagram at Emylee Says and let me know. I want to know. I want to know how it goes for you. This is literally hidden revenue in your business. So this enables you to not worry right now about new business, leads, getting in the right room, your messaging, your positioning, all of the things that do matter. And we're going to pay attention to those. But it's a holiday time cash injection. That's what we're after. It's the perfect time of year to do it. So go do it. Go do your audit and let me know how it goes. Hey, Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sell the Damn Service. I'm really honored that you spent however many minutes you just did with me. Now, if you could go do me a very quick favor and be sure to like, subscribe, leave a rating and a review for this podcast over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or, pick your favorite platform. I'm not going to be that choosy. It truly means the world to me. It's how little tiny shows that are like mine, that are self-funded and, being edited in between dinner time and school pickup, it helps us get seen. It's free for you to do and takes just a couple of minutes. And I would love you forever if I could send you an edible arrangement as a big thank you. I would. So instead, consider this giant thank you directed just at you for going to do that. And share this episode or this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it. I love ranting and raving about service-based business strategies. And, I think more people should listen to this show, honestly. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I really am grateful that you're here, and we will chat very soon.